us reimagine how we rebuild stronger, fitter, healthier economies and societies at a September Caribbean Economic Forum, where we chat about adjusting to the post-COVID-19 economy with a panel of international economists with Caribbean roots and our experiences. Bahamian Dr. Peter Blair, Assistant Professor at Harvard University. Vincentian Dr. Wendell Samuel of the IMF. From Guyana, Dr. Dylan Naleen, Deputy Director of Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC. And Dr. Eric Strobel, Professor in Environmental and Climate Economics, University of Bern, Switzerland, and who's worked across the Caribbean. Join the conversation about rebuilding our nation's economies.
Caribbean Economic Forum, this Sunday at 5 p.m. on GBN television channels 7 and 11. GBN, keeping you informed with global issues, anywhere and everywhere.
Let's Cook Grenada, a practical culinary guide to local cuisine. Learn new ways to prepare your favorite foods or try different menus from various locations across the island. Let's Cook, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on GBN Television, Channel 7 and 11, GBN's Facebook page, and GBN's YouTube channel. If you miss it, catch the repeat Thursdays at 10 a.m. and Sundays at 3:30 p.m.
Raise it high up the ladder, let we set it on fire. A little more calypso, forget the funk and the disco. A little more limbo, a little more shango. Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance round the maple.
Top, because you want the top to go.
That's
Good evening once again, folks. Well, no, not once again. Just good evening. Yes, indeed. Actually, I mean this evening to ensure that we have OUI Culture running. It's very, very important. And we just want to let you know and to remind you folks that OUI Culture comes to you compliments BOP insecticide spray, of course, distributed by Hubbard's agency. This evening we continue our discussion on Hurricane Janet. As a matter of fact, last week and also this week, we did a number of interviews and some of the experiences we started sharing with you last week. And we have a couple more we're going to share with you this week. So, of course, we're in for another great program. We welcome all our viewers of GBN Television and our listeners of K105 FM. Of course, with us this evening again, we have our special guest, Mr. Franklyn Marshall. He was with us last week. Unfortunately, something went wrong and he got disconnected prematurely. So he's back with us this week. Our cultural icon is here. Scholar says a J-Con. So we pass I. Livingston is here with us. And of course, very early, the Rose is here with us this evening. Reece is here with us as well. And of course, Scholar has just joined us. So it's a good time to welcome everyone. Guys, welcome to OUI Culture for another week.
Thank you, Godfrey, and good night to everybody.
Once again, we are at it. So I guess the momentum keeps flowing. Good night to everyone. Good night to the listening public.
Yes,
Good
yes,
evening,
indeed.
everyone. It's good to be back another Friday. Another Friday where we sit back and we just kick and talk about our culture, everything that's, you know, of yesteryear and tying it in with this year. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from Mr. Marshall again this evening and the rest of you, of course.
Yes, indeed. Finley, what happened to you? You're late this evening.
Relations, friends, and parishioners.
Livingston, listen, I have one for all you, you know. Livingston, you always interfere with you. I have one for him, you know. So yeah, we had to tell him anytime he come and we had to say, for the record, please tell us your name.
Relations, friends, and parishioners, good night.
Yes, indeed. It's such a pleasure again. So, folks, we went out again this week and we had discussions with a number of persons. In the outer parishes. Of course, this is where we know that Hurricane Janet had more impact. A lot of the damage, the serious damage was done in the outer parishes. And so we spoke to a number of people. So what we're going to do this evening, we are going to listen to two of the interviews we did. We've edited them, so folks, you will not see the entire interview, but in the future, we will upload the entire interviews on our YouTube channel, so you can go in there and look at it. So we've taken some clips from the interviews. We are going to share them with you now, and following that, we're going to have some discussions on it. And then a little later on, we're going to look at what actually happened after Janet, the aftermath of Janet, going into the next major disaster we had, which is Hurricane Ivan. So, Mr. Producer, could you first give us the clip with Mr. Septimus Williams? That day came, from what I understand, it was a normal day initially. Bright sunshine, then the rain started coming. When did people actually get notice that there was going to be a hurricane or bad weather?
Well, I don't think people got any notice, but the old people, they can always tell when something goes to happen. Because the whole place was very calm, and everybody was saying, the old people were saying that storm is coming. Okay, so nobody take much notice at the time, So evening came and we all go to bed. At the middle of the night, I jump up in the sleep because I heard some, and I go to my mother and say, Tinny, is that a plane? Because the song, like a plane, She said, son, pray. At that time, she was already praying. She said, son, pray. And we both started praying. And after a while, as things was getting worse, the house started rocking. As you know, it was a small boathouse, and things started rocking. And I had an aunt, she just had a baby, 3 days old. So my mother said to me, go and get Tantan. We used to call her Tantan. Our name is Anvira, and we used to call her Tantan. So she said, go and get Tantan and the child. So I go on and I take Tantan and the baby, and she had a younger son named Nelson. So as I take them out of the house, and as I turn back, the house smashed into little bits. The house smashed into bits, completely bits, the house smashed into. So I took her to the house with my mother and my young brother and my sister was. So while we were there, the house was rocking from left to right, as a boat. So I was standing on the door of the house. And when the house goes on like that, it come up like that, because I was the oldest male there, and so on. So after that, my mother says to me, Tommy, things getting worse. Take Tantan and the children up by Mr. Elmo. Mr. Elmo was married to one of my auntie, but she had died, So I left my mother in the house, and I took Tantan and the child up there. And then when I came back with my mother in the house, the house turned over. The bottom of the house was in the air, and my mother and my sister was inside the house. So I had to climb to get them out. And when we got them out, we got back. I took them back by Mr. Elma. We stayed there till the sun ceased in the morning.
So after that happened, so the night it was hurricane right through.
Right through.
Rain, wind,
yes.
thunder.
Well, the point is, everybody's trying to shelter from the wind and the rain, and so on. And this man's house was maybe the strongest house in the area, so everybody congregated there.
Right. So the next morning, after people saw the damage, your house was overturned. Mm-hmm. What happened then?
What happened then? Everybody was going to look to see what happened to other people, our neighbors or friends. We're calling out. I was trying to check to see if my brother was all right. My brother was in Moncton, and things like that. So, and then people start fixing up the house. Those who had little houses were trying to fix it, but it was still be night, mm-hmm. And so on. So, as you know, there was flooding all over the place, and there's a lot of water, a lot of damage. Most of the houses fell. The smaller houses, I meant, most of them fell, and nothing to do. So we get people to help us after a while, not at the same time, mm-hmm. to turn the house back up, and so I'm trying to fix it for the sleep the night, Mm-hmm.
And how long it took? Because of course, with all the damage that happened, it would have taken quite a bit of time for things to kind of get back to normal. In your mind, as you can recall, how did things proceed? And in terms of people who lost their houses, what happened to them? Did they get houses? And we understand it was around the time when Mr. Geary came to Grenada.
Well, at the time, the point is everybody was trying to help each other to try and fix the houses. Okay? And, well, the government was, there was not much the government could do at the time anyway, and so on. So what they was trying to do, clear the road. So there are people walking in trouble, we call it trouble at the time, trying to clear the road. And there's the places where they will slide and so on. I was 17 at the time, 17 and a half. So at the time, when things trying to get to normal, people walking on the road. So I left school, I didn't go back to school. So I gone to travel on the road. And we were sent all the way in St. Patrick's in Mount Craven. That's where the place that the biggest slide in Grenada. Mount Craven Hill came down. And we was walking from Tivoli to Mount Craven in Sattes. Every day morning, you go up, you walk in even 4 o'clock, you go back down, And so he continued like that for time. And the roads has been fixed, the road have been cleared, and so on. So then everybody started trying to fix the house.
What about agriculture? Because we understand all the trees fell.
Well, yeah,
what was the impact on the agriculture?
Well, a lot of the provision fell, But as you know, the people at the time, they used to live on their lives they used on agriculture. So it was they started building up themselves. The government even tried helping, because and after a while, when the trees and them start coming up again, they had people going about spraying the bananas, right, to destroy the disease, whatever disease they took, and so on. So this is what happened, because actually my first job is as a God is not my first job. My second job is spraying bananas. Right. We used to go all over the country and spray bananas, But eventually, the eye was affected by legs. Big bumps was coming out on my legs. So I left at the time, I left. And at the time, my mother and I was trying to get help to fix our own house. And then I got a job at RM Bowler. HM Bowler, working on Saturdays. Right. Every Saturday I work at HM Bowler. And after a while, I got a job with RM Bowler. I got a permanent job with him all the time, So I was working there and trying to save the little money we had to try and rebuild the house, So after that, my mother one day she called me. She said, son, what we going to do about the house? I said, how much money we have? She said, she got $500. So I said to her, you're not going to do? I'm going to take this money and I'm going to take it to RM Bowl in Grenville. And when I was working there, asked him to help. So when I called him one day and he sat down and we talked. And I said, listen, this is what we got, $500. My mother house just need repair. I said, could you take this money and send all the materials for me? And as I'm working for you, you can take it out every month. It was for me at the time $40 a month.
$40 a month.
$40 a month. That was a lot of money, And so we did, and then I got an opportunity to go to England. That time people started going to England.
So that was Mr. Septimus Williams from Tivoli, his experience, and that's just part of the interview. We're going to listen to the other interview quickly, and following that, we're going to go to our first break, and then when we come back, we will have a discussion on some of the experiences shared and look at what happened after. So let's go to our other interview that's with Mrs. Shirley Robinson and Miss Rush from St. Patrick. This afternoon we are in St. Patrick again, and this time we're chatting with two wonderful ladies, Miss Shirley Robinson, and this name, I'm sure once you hear that name, one thing comes to mind: OUI Culture. Of course, she's played a significant role in our culture in helping to shape it and to create some of the events that keeps our culture alive. Also with us, Miss Cecilia Rush, and both these wonderful ladies have experienced Hurricane Janet. It was many years ago. As a matter of fact, 65 years ago, Hurricane Janet destroyed Grenada. And this evening, or this afternoon rather, they would share with us some of the experiences during that period. So I want to start closest to me, Miss Rush. At the time when Hurricane Janet struck Grenada, how did you get to know that there was going to be bad weather?
Well, it's when the children came from school. They said the teacher told them to go home because there is some bad weather out. So that's how I come to know.
And before that, let's say maybe about a year or so leading up to Hurricane Janet, how was the life like? How did people live in Grenada or in St. Patrick for that matter?
Well, we live just happy, content with everything we have, no fuss. We're very happy with little what we have. I think little provision, little fish, make little steam down, callaloo, all these different things. So we're very happy.
Right, and it was a wonderful time from what we learned. And for me and people in my age group, we have only had second-hand information about Hurricane Janet. So I want to go to Mrs. Robinson now. Mrs. Robbie, at the time you were in school when Hurricane Janet, take us through that period. Tell us about some of your little experiences before and what happened on the day of Janet.
Well, to tell you the truth, I was not in school, but see, I was teaching, and when the Janet came, and we were not as now, where we have our TVs and you have your all those, I don't even know those names. You have Zoom, you have APC and ARF and all kind of things. For me, I know about any of them. So we couldn't depend on these things. It was word of mouth. So sometimes you when you hear it, you believe it. Sometimes you believe it because sometimes you try to hear it and nothing happened. So when you hear it, you hear it again. You hear, people try to do it. When you tell every time they tell you something and you ain't seeing, you ain't hearing nothing. That's them and the thing. But when we realized that it seemed as though something meant to come by us, to visit us, we started to get frightened. So they told the children, the rain started coming and it continued. It started coming light, slight, and light as we see. And then it wouldn't stop, but it just kept getting stronger and stronger. And then the children was sent home. They went home through the rain. But while I was home, when I came from the school, I used to teach in RC. My mother was saying, "We're gonna have a bad thing today, you know. We're gonna have a bad thing today." I said, "Well, how you know that?" She said, "You see how the wind blowing going up the pasture, because we live near to the pasture around the savannah, we so call it. That's McDonald College now. It wasn't there then." And she said, "Anytime you see the wind running up like that to the west, to the south," she said, something she said, and she said, when it's going a certain direction, you can expect something bad. So that's how people start to get nervous and worried, and everybody start to get a little water, so you could put some water away and things like that. And she was right. The weather people were right, the meteorologists were right, because the rain never stopped from after 12 to between 11. I can't tell you the exact time, because even clocks and so on not as common as now. So it was between 12, 11 to 12 and going. And it never stopped. It kept on going from strong to stronger to strongest and to most strong and to storm. And when it was about 4 o'clock, because that was about, you could see it outside, you know how dark out of the about 4 o'clock, it was really strong. Very strong. And like everybody running home now, reach home already. It went on till about 8. When it stopped about 8. It paused. Mm-hmm. We thought it had stopped, but it paused. And it was dressing up with more rain, and more wind, and more patterns of dance and whatnot, whatever he was picking up, because it stayed about an hour, it's as much as an hour. And in the meantime, people left their homes. You know how we fast already? And they're gone because hurricane done. So they're gone searching. Only to find Mr. Hurricane was coming back on the way. While they're going to see what Mr. Hurricane did, Mr. Hurricane was coming back to tell them, well, I went to take up my appliances to come back to deal with you. So it came back about 8:30, 9. And it went on until the morning. In the meantime now, it's dealing with us on the ground. Mm-hmm. People started moving for shelter. This lady, who is my aunt, happens to be my aunt, she's my aunt. My last aunt, she came over by us.
And that's where you all are living presently?
The spot.
Same spot. Mm-hmm.
And piece of the house, too, because you had good, how do you call it? Lumber.
In those days.
The, how do you call it? Green hearts and mahogany. Up to now, if you go across there, you see the mahogany floor there from since that time. So she left and came over to my place, thinking, well, my one going to stand up. Then I now joined her, thinking, well, both of us, it's a rotten house, it's wood. So as we decided, let us go down by Cousin Annie, which is the next house, not too far from us. So we went there. And when we went at this time, we had rain. This Cousin Annie now decided she lived in her house too because it's a little wooden house, and she didn't stay there because it won't fall. So 3 of us, like the 3 blind mice, head down for the gospel hall, which is just down there. And the gospel hall now say, you must learn to stay where you are, storm and storm. So as soon as we step in the gospel hall, you hear bang, 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 to galvanize. And what I'm saying there, this part of it is just as it is. As soon as we step in that place, the galvanize is set to come out. So we couldn't do anything because by that time the storm was getting heavy, it was heavy. So we were sat down. In the meantime, there were a lot of people there ready for us. And so we sat in that, and so the rain, the galvanizer is coming off. There's nothing we could do, so we just had to sit on the pews in the rain until the rain. And we stayed there the whole night, and so we were just looking at the roof going, flying. Lightning. Ooh, you never see lightning like that. Thunder. So we there in the heavy lightning, heavy thunder. And people, they were talking still, auntie. The people, they were talking, okay?
You're in the road?
No, in the room. We sat down in the place.
Right.
In the gospel hall. Were they speaking while we were there?
Everybody boiling.
Sorry.
Everybody boiling. We stand up in the water, 10 hours water. 10 hours.
From the time we left.
You can't go anywhere because inside.
So, but all the time, havoc being made outside and we don't know. We know about what's on top of our head, but we don't know what's outside. So we stayed there, only praying, asking God not to take our lives. Because we host God already. So we stayed until it ended, and when it ended I think it was 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. I don't want to tell lies, because it's a long time, and then we said, I am old ganga now, so I can't remember exactly as it should be. I may make little mistakes here and there. So when we came out, everybody was outside, including all the fowls, dogs dead, fowls dead, everything dead. And everybody telling the story. And
okay, so that was some other experiences from two ladies who experienced Hurricane Janet. What we're going to do now is to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to have some discussions on what we heard. I'm sure Livingston heard some very familiar names. So we're going to have some discussions after that, and we are going to bring on Mr. Marshall to tell us a little bit about what happened after. So we go to a break, and we'll be back with you in just a moment. Stay with us, folks.
Get high making money moves with the NLA's new Aces High Scratch game with 4 chances to win. Beat the dealer's card to win the prize shown. Reveal an A symbol. And just like that, you are automatically a winner. Scratch away to win the top prize of $10,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
Good evening, viewers and listeners. Welcome to the National Lottery Authority's Daily Pick 3 Evening Draw for today, Friday, the 2nd of October, 2020. I'm Lexanne Fletcher, and I'll be your hostess for this evening. And joining me is Miss Makiba Bain. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Of course, she's here to ensure the games for this evening are conducted in a fair and accountable manner, that the game balls have not been tampered with and are within industry standards. Well, a quick reminder, with the Pick 3 game, you can bet as little as $1 on inline, mix and pair tickets, and from $2 on backup tickets. Let's find out what the winning numbers will be. It pays to play. Good luck. All right, if you've got your tickets out, check them now. First number up is 1. Second number 9, third and final. Third and final is 3. So let's do a quick recap. First number was 1. The second 9. Third and final was 3. That's 193. Congratulations if you're a winner this evening. And do stay tuned. We've got the Playway Draw coming up next. We'll see you then.
Tick, tock, toe. I win.
Feel like a big kid again when you play NLA's new scratch game, Tic-Tac-Toe. It's instant cash on the go. Reveal 3 X's or 3 O's in the same row, column, or diagonally, and win the prizes shown, or as much as $5,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play. Tic-Tac-Toe, please.
Give me a tic-tac-toe, please. Tic-tac-toe, please.
Welcome back. It's time for the Playway Draw for this evening, Friday, the 2nd day in October 2020. Joining me once again, Ms. Makiba Bain. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Now, quick reminder with the Playway game, all you got to do is bet as little as $1 up to $10, or in increments on any number or dream symbol of your choice, and get to win 24 times the amount you bet. That's $24 for every dollar spent. Let's find out what the winning Playway number will be for this evening. Value your dreams win your way with Playway. Good luck. And the winning Playway number is... Yes, this evening's winning winning playway number is 36. That's 3636, and the dream symbol is vagrant. Just repeat, tonight's winning playway number 36. That's 3636, and the dream symbol vagrant. If you're a winner, congratulations to you, and we hope you got your tickets out. Cash for draw is coming up next. We'll see you then.
Win more with the NLA's Daily Cash 4 every day, with more plays and bigger prizes to be won. It's a 4-digit game with all the bet types you already know and much, much more. From 0000 to 9999. Choose your 4 numbers and place your bet from 11 different bet types. Choose from inline, 4 different mixes, first 3, last 3, and 4 different backup options too. Best of all, it starts at just $1, except for backups, which starts at $2. Win as much as $5,000 with a $1 inline bet and as much as $6,200 in a $2 backup bet. Imagine $50,000 for a winning $10 inline bet. There's definitely more to win with the Daily Cash 4. More plays, bigger prizes, twice per day, Mondays to Saturdays. Must be 18 and over to participate. NLA, making your dreams come true while supporting sports, culture, and nation building.
Welcome back. It's time for the Daily Cash Flow draw for this evening, Friday, the 2nd of October, 2020. And joining me once again is Ms. Makiba Bain. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Now, here's a quick reminder with the Cash Flow game. You can bet as little as $1 on most of the bet types with the exception of backup, in which case you bet $2. All right, it's time to reveal the winning numbers. It's more plays, bigger prizes. Good luck. First number is, yes, the first number up is 0. Second number 4. Third number 4. And the fourth and final is 6. Of course, I got to recap, double check your tickets numbers on the screen. First number up was 0, the second number 4, third number 4, and the fourth and final was 6. If you're winning, congratulations to you. And of course, we do hope you've got your lotto tickets. The lottery draw comes up later on. The estimated jackpot, $286,000. We'll see you then.
I'm a winner. You are winner. We are winners.
It's the big one. Grenada, imagine winning $25,000 and up to 6 times by scratching just one little ticket. Get your triple cash scratch tickets for a chance to live your best life. Win easy with Scratch. For just $3, match any of your numbers to any of the winning numbers and win the prize shown for that number. Reveal a money back symbol and win the prize instantly. Triple cash scratch in stores now. Must be 18 or older to play.
'Cause I'm a winner. From the moment that I get up, I'm feeling right.
Get serious. Get bop.
Available at Hubbard's Agency, Kirani James Boulevard, St. George.
Care Center, located on Grenville Street, St. George's, has a highly professional team that gives excellent service in massage therapy, physiotherapy, speech therapy, medical consultation, and more. Hills and Valley Medcare Center sells a wide range of medical supplies, offers home visits for patients in Grenada and Carriacou, and opens Monday to Saturday, 10 a.m. through to 7 p.m. Visit or call Hills and Valley Med Care Center today, 435-6904.
Kindly greasy pole, and we don't dance from the maypole.
Welcome back, folks. It's OUI Culture, in case you're just joining us. And earlier we listened to two accounts from people who experienced Hurricane Janet. I want to go to my team now, and let me start with Livingston. Livingston, we listened to the first account, a gentleman from Tivoli, and I'm sure you're probably familiar with some of the names that you heard mentioned. Yeah, I'm hearing you a little. Are you catching on to me? Are you hearing me well? All right.
Godfrey.
Yes. Okay. Livingston, we need to check your audio. I'm not hearing you well at all. Okay. Let's try. Scholar, are you hearing me well?
Hearing you very well.
All right. I'm not sure what's happening with Livingston's audio. So let's chat a bit, Scholar. You heard some of the accounts that were given. What, based on what you heard, any similarities we heard from someone in Tivoli and then someone from Sauters?
Yes. Well, good night again to all listeners, and I must say that I feel very privileged, really, to have been a part of this whole discussion. I was not in any of the pictures, but the viewers should know, and I'm very proud that you dragged me along with you to do all of these interviews. And I heard some really chilling stuff, you know, and what is evident from what Mr. Marshall would have spoken about last week, though abbreviated. And the young ladies, Miss Robinson and Miss Rush, the gentleman, and we also did another interview with a lady in Ahoma, which was not aired tonight. But what is evident, there are a number of things that are evident right away. Communication, yeah? The communication, the means of communicating, and to alert people as to if bad weather is coming and so on. This was not as we know it today. And so most of them would have said that they heard it from school. Some principal or the other would have said it. And so you wonder about the level of preparedness, because it definitely was not like how we are today. Today, everybody wants to know if the sun hot. People want to know the sun go hot before it hot. If a rain drizzle and not mine say, then everybody starting to get back. How not matter say you have a drizzle today, right? And you could tell, because everything seemed to have been normal. I mean, children went to school. Mr. Marshall said that his father, his mother, they went to work, so people went to work, people went to school, and it was communicated to the school. Because Ms. Rush, who was not schooling at that time, she said that she got to know it when the children came home. All right? So again, it's from the school. Mr. Marshall got to know it from his school. And then, of course, you had the tongue crier, and you had the police and so on, giving the news. So communication was a big thing. As a matter of fact, an interesting one that I heard was from you call her grandma in her home. What's her name again, Godfrey?
Miss Alquin.
Miss Alquin in her home. She said that they only got to know when a gentleman, he seemed to have been one of the kind of well-to-do kind of men. He came to the school and he asked for all the John children, which means all the children whose surname is John. He came for the John children, maybe in a car, because he said that they said a hurricane was coming. And that is how the teachers and them themselves got to know that a hurricane is coming. And that's how they alerted the children and asked the children to go home. And by her own account, the children, when they were going home, that time the hurricane, the hurricane in motion already, because they had to cross things with drain and big water coming down and so on. So the communication, that's the first thing. It's constant and consistent throughout. That the communication was not as now. Also, Godfrey, one of the things that struck me was the degree of the lightning. I mean, I am glad that a lot of people afraid thunder. When lightning is a dangerous thing. I mean, thunder ain't doing nobody nothing. Thunder just make you afraid, right? But just as with them fellas who are sing, the naughty like lightning, without the naughty thunder is nothing, right? So that lightning, I mean, and my mother, who's alive, my mother and father, they corroborated much of what I heard. And Mr. Marshall would have corroborated it too. And the two young ladies, Ms. Robinson and so on, they also said that one of the interesting things about Hurricane Janet was that the lightning burned a lot of the trees, actually burned the trees, right? And my mother would have said to me that in that night, because they were moving from one place to another place, and it was so dark that they couldn't move. And what illuminated the way was the lightning. Every time the lightning flashed, they were able to move. And when the lightning done, they had to stand up. And when the lightning flashed again, so they're moving with the lightning. So you could very well imagine, I mean, how terrible this was. And the third thing that struck me, Godfrey, was the eye of the hurricane. Everyone spoke of the calm. Mm-hmm. In fact, Ms. Rush spoke of it. She said there were two hurricanes. Remember, she said that?
Yes,
there were two hurricanes, right? There was a hurricane in the front, which was not as bad. And it lured people into a false sense of security. And people came out, who come out to as Mr. Rabi say, fasten the tail. They come out to see what hurricane do. And people even came out to clear place that hurricane, trees that hurricane fell. And then when the hurricane came back, that was the bad part. And to me, this is what caused a lot of the fatalities and damage and fatalities, especially because cut people with their pants down and people were outside. And this to me is what those three things especially stood out for me as been consistent with all of the stories.
Right. Livingston, let's try Livingston and see. Livingston, are you hearing us well now?
I'm hearing you. Are you hearing me now?
Very good, very good. Yes, indeed. Mm-hmm.
Well, quickly, there are a few things that I probably don't want to repeat all what Scholar said, so I will go to the territory. I want to go back to the Paradise area because I got some new information that there was a man living or the old garage. So that is on the southern end of Paradise Bridge. And this man name was called Mr. Willie City and family. And he had a house, a shop, a garage, and two cars, an old car and a new car. And the water broke the river broke its banks and went with the house, the shop, the garage, and the brand new car that he had. Until in the morning, after everything what has subsided, they found the house and 2 women were holding on to the roof, to the rafters. 2 women were inside it, and they were washed down by the house, and they were rescued around 300 meters going downstream towards the bay side. There are still walls remaining where that house was located. So that is a piece of information I never heard, so I just thought it was very, very important. And this information I get from a man in conference named Mr. Delaney Williams, who shared that with me. Also, I last week I said, based on the information I got, that there was no looting. I spoke to Ms. Banville, Gloria Ben Banville, and she said in St. George's Spring area, there was definitely some looting taking place. So I just wanted to make that correction, because, at that time people used to loot. I thought this pertinent information that I would like to share is that a place called Maridoun. In Maridoun, there was a family, the Peters family was living close to the Gibbon house is presently located. And there's a ravine, so the water started breaking its bank. And there were 2 ladies there and a child. Now, in the old time days, they used to have grip, or well, for want of a better word, suitcase, but grip. So they put the child in that grip, or in the suitcase, in a way to safeguard the child to cross. And while they were going, scholar mentioned about the lightning, it was extremely dark, so they were waiting on the lightning to cross. And again, that information supplied by Mr. Delaney Williams. But the wind was so heavy that the suitcase flew out of the hand of one of the lady carrying the child. So they went into the house, and when they reached it, there was no suitcase. Morning come, and the whole, they start searching, because daylight now, they start searching, only to find that the suitcase was just on the bank of the ravine. It didn't actually go into the water. And I think Mr. Delaney, in a sense, mentioned that is when his faith in God really get entrenched because of that, that out of what the many things that could happen, that is where the child ended up. Godfrey also learned that Dunfermline Bridge, which was an iron bridge, got totally washed out. So people had to go all the way down to the airport and travel to Simoon in order to go across. And that is how people made their way, their way. So I know tonight we probably not play some time, so I'll give some other thing, but I have a lot of other information that I would like to share. But I think for time's sake, let me just keep the ball rolling.
Yes. So Reece, have you been able to speak to anyone by your side? Your microphone is muted, Reece. Can you? Yeah.
Yes, Godfrey. And what you find is that a lot of the stories that you are hearing from Scholar and Livingston, and even what the lady spoke about, and Mr. Marshall last week, is quite similar. You hear about, I spoke to one gentleman who told me about the coastal area with Guava, especially being on the coastal side, the level of debris that you had within the town of Guava on the streets after, because there was a lot of wind associated with Janet. He spoke about the river busting its banks. He also spoke about the whole communication too with the fishermen. The story is very similar with the children, the schools being told about a hurricane coming, and that is how most of the people within the community found out as well. So you'll find that the stories are quite similar when it comes to the other parishes. But there's something that I wanted to read, just a little piece of reading from Darrell Braffett on Facebook. He spoke about different islands and the impact, and he said that on Grenada, on September 23rd, Janet passed directly between Grenada and Carriacou in the Grenadines, killing 122 people in the island chain. The airport on Grenada was covered in debris strewn by the strong winds. 8 people were killed in Grenville town near the airport. Strong winds were also reported to have destroyed docks and warehouses and unroofed a hotel in St. George's. Houses were also unroofed and balconies of government offices in St. George's were torn off. All bridges in the island's interior regions collapsed, and spice crops sustained heavy damage. An estimated 75% of nutmeg plantations were destroyed, along with nearly all of the island's banana and cocoa crops. 3 ships were also grounded in the harbor. in the Carnage, the waterfront region of the St. George's, debris was scattered and an 820 feet pier collapsed. So, I mean, we are talking a lot about Janet right now, and it seems like there are people who do have interest in telling the stories about what happened, and what we are doing here is really just adding to what it is, and getting from the people who actually experienced it before it passed, to tell us more, because a lot that we're seeing in terms of research is more statistical information.
Right. As you mentioned, the bridges and so, and I recall, and Scholar, you recall as well, Miss Robinson did say to us that there was a bridge in the Perseverance area, and she said she remembered for certain because she had to travel that bridge ever so often to come to St. George's, and after Janet, they had to use bamboo and other lumber to do a makeshift bridge to get to and from St. George's. So definitely a lot of these things are similar, and we are getting to realize that there's a lot of information out there and people are just waiting. Now, Mr. Marshall, I'm going to come to you in just a moment. I just want to take our final break. When we come back, we'll go to Mr. Marshall to get some information as to what transpired after. So let's take our final break, and we'll be back with you in a moment, folks. Stay with us.
Do your dreams seem far away from coming true? The National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Jackpot is $286,000. Fulfilling your plans can be just one ticket away. So play today. Lotto. Play and win a lot of money.
Good evening once again. It's time for the National Lottery Authority's Lotto draw number 3122 for this evening, Friday, the 2nd of October, 2020. The estimated jackpot for this evening is $286,000. Well, joining me once again is Ms. Makiba Bain. She's representing PKF Accountants and Business Advisors. Well, as per usual, I'll select the free ticket letter if you got your tickets. Good luck. And this evening's free ticket letter is... This evening's free ticket letter is J as in jackpot. That's J as in jackpot. And it's time to select tonight's 5 winning numbers for $286,000. Good luck. All right, it's time to check your tickets. First number is... Number up, 21. Second number, 19. Third number, 30. Fourth number, 12. And the fifth and final is 6. So we got a recap just for you. All right, double check your tickets. The free ticket letter, that letter is J as in jackpot. J as in jackpot. And the 5 winning numbers for $286,000. So let's recap. First number up was 21. That's 2121. Second number 19. And that's 1919. Third number 30. 30. The fourth was 12. 12. And the fifth and final was 6. Now, if you have these numbers, you are a winner. This has been Lotto Play and Win a Lot, of course, urging you to keep playing, keep supporting sports, culture, and nation building, and have a good night.
Tick, tock, 2, I win.
Feel like a big kid again when you play NLA's new scratch game, Tic-Tac-Toe. It's instant cash on the go. Reveal 3 X's or 3 O's in the same row, column, or diagonally, and win the prizes shown, or as much as $5,000. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play. Tic-Tac-Toe, please.
Give me a tic-tac-toe, please. Tic-tac-toe, please.
Get serious. Get bop.
Available at Hubbard's Agency, Kirani James Boulevard, St. George.
Let us reimagine how we rebuild stronger, fitter, healthier economies and societies at a September Caribbean Economic Forum, where we chat about adjusting to the post-COVID-19 economy with a panel of international economists with Caribbean roots and our experiences. Bahamian Dr. Peter Blair, Assistant Professor at Harvard University. Vincentian Dr. Wendell Samuel of the IMF. From Guyana, Dr. Dylan Naleen, Deputy Director of Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean, ECLAC. And Dr. Eric Strobel, Professor in Environmental and Climate Economics, University of Bern, Switzerland, and who's worked across the Caribbean. Join the conversation about rebuilding our nation's economies.
Caribbean Economic Forum, this Sunday at 5 p.m. on GBN television channels 7 and 11. GBN, keeping you informed with global issues, anywhere and everywhere.
Kindly greasy pole, and we got dance round the maypole.
Welcome back to OUI Culture. Mr. Marshall, we're coming to you now. So we've heard different accounts of what transpired, and following that, the process of rebuilding, of course, had to start. Let's talk a little bit about that, the rebuilding process, getting Grenada back on track. What happened with agriculture? What happened with our infrastructure? What happened especially in the political arena? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Godfrey, I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I'm hearing you well.
Right, you and your team. I must say it's very pertinent to recall that Grenada had just a few years ago attained adult suffrage. And it's also pertinent to recall that Grenada was a crown colony at the time of Janet. And we had a chief minister, I think that's what he was then, Mr. E.M. Gary. I remember the day after the hurricane, the following morning, there was a passenger boat that plied the islands. They call it the Deerwood. After that was the Madinina, after that was the Federal Carib Clipper, after that, the Federal Palm and Maple, that's way down in the years. But the Deerwood, I remember well, that boat came by the Victoria Market, quite a number of yards into the sea. And the Chief Minister, Honorable E.M. Gary, was on that boat. And he sympathized with the people of St. Mark's. There were lots of people on the beach, but the sea was kicking like, if I should say it mildly, like hell. And Mr. Gary took a microphone and addressed the people on shore that morning. But everywhere that morning, wherever you went, you could smell the strong scent of sulfur. the digging of the river, here, there, everywhere. The river passing through the tongue of Victoria, flooding the Victoria police station, the Anglican church, the Victoria Nutmeg Pool, the Catholic church, mud everywhere, and debris from houses strewn everywhere. The strong smell of sulfur. No one could have avoided that smell. Against this background, Godfrey, I cannot estimate in dollars and cents what the destruction might have cost. But if I say it was about $20 million, $20 million in 1955 is a few hundred million now. There is no comparison. Okay? But I can tell you, more than 60% of the houses in St. Mark's were down. Not the roof alone. Houses down on the ground. They were mainly shattered houses. And what rolled and mashed up, what broke up on the foundation, nearly 60% of the houses. As a consequence, and the damage to the cultivation too. Godfrey, coconut everywhere. You don't have to look for a coconut tree. Most of them on the ground. But the coconuts left the trees. The trees were the nudity of the coconuts. They were naked. Breadfruit all about. Citrus all about. And you could hear the roaring of the river water still. 10, 11 o'clock in the day. And dead animals all about. As a consequence, the day went by, there was a kind of an air of sadness. People consoled each other, people hugged each other, tears came from their eyes, but nobody seemed to be able to help each other in any real material way because they were all in the same situation. And then as evening came, there was concern among the people. Where are we going and stay? Where are we going and sleep tonight? And those people whose houses stood up, they were kind enough to allow the poor, the disabled, everybody else to come and share in the household, to come and share. And what was very striking, the morning after that hurricane, all those people who were enemies were no longer enemies. They threw the enmity behind them, and they were friends, real friends, as they hugged each other. You never know that they were not speaking to each other for ages. So nearly every house standing had strangers in the house. And you know something, Godfrey? Food would be cooked sometimes outside. Food will be cooked inside the house, and people would sit or stand and eat as they're able, consoling each other. And that sharing of house went for quite some time. But government buildings, especially schools, in those days, Godfrey, we had what I would call the, you know, nowadays, we don't want to hear about district board and local government. Well, we had local government in those days, and some of the local government buildings were used as shelters, called district boards. Okay? People shared that. So churches they were shared. Police station, it was shared by the police and civilians. So there was a general sharing. In those days too, Godfrey, I must remind, Grenada did not have 5% of the motor vehicles that we have now. Not even 5%. And long ago, when somebody traveled on a bus, maybe from Guelph to St. George's or Victoria to Grenville, at least 25% of the passengers would vomit. The reason for that is people were so unaccustomed to traveling on motor vehicles. So when they reached inside the motor vehicle, the trees were spinning, the horses were spinning, and they couldn't orient themselves to understand it was the vehicle that was moving. So most times you travel on a bus, some few persons would vomit. And the vehicles were very few. Food was not scarce then. The local fruits and vegetables, they were in abundance. Not on the trees, but on the ground. And meat, in those days, Godfrey, only the rich could afford a fridge. And the fridge was generated by a lamp at the back, heating the gas to circulate in the fridge. And only the rich afforded fridges. There was no electricity. So you didn't miss electricity. Everybody accustomed with their lamps. So people use the lamp, they use the torchlight, they use the flashlight if they had, and they use candles. Okay? And dark night was dark night. Okay? No electricity around. That's how it was like. Okay?
But Mr. Marshall, I want to just go back a bit. You mentioned that was it the following day or a day or so after, the chief minister came up to Victoria on a boat and addressed the people. What did he say to them?
Well, I'm trying to remember now, eh? I remember well saying, my dear people of Victoria, I am here to give you comfort and consolation. The dear Lord will not let us go. He has only visited us for a short while, and everything will be well. Please have faith, please have hope, and stand with your leader. I remember these words coming from his mouth. But as a young man, 12 years, I don't pay much attention to what else he had to say. You understand? But my dear people of Victoria, and stand with your leader. Okay? I remember that very well.
Right.
Okay? So, in terms of agriculture, the nutmeg's down, maybe about 75 to 80% of the nutmeg fields. The bananas flat, cocoa twisted and warped, but much of the cocoa stood up, but they were flat on the ground. Okay, because the cocoa branches could twist and turn and twist and turn without breaking. Okay? So, road clearing was one of the main source of employment. Nearly everybody took to the roads to clear the roads. It was not like Ivan. For instance, after Ivan, I could have been in town the next day. But at the time of Janet, after Janet, every 6 feet you passed is a big tree or a house or a big stone. And you didn't have this kind of machines, as it were, to bulldoze them and make way. So it took a long time before anybody could travel very far. If you have your vehicles, don't look at vehicles. You couldn't go anywhere. It took a long time to clear the roads. And the estates immediately started rehabilitation. What is interesting, they gave to the laborers portions of land to grow their garden on condition that in addition to your manioc and your sweet potatoes and your yams and your okras that you might, and corn and peas, you have to interplant with cocoa trees and nutmeg trees. That was a condition for which you got land to make your garden. And when these export crops, when they began to mature, the estate would take the garden back from you. They may pay you something for having grown those trees, and they give you another piece of land to work under the same condition. So that was a way of rehabilitating the estates. But what I noticed then, they turned and gave a lot of attention to the re-establishment of the banana industry. I think because banana is a faster growing crop. So nearly every estate in St. Mark's, in St. John's too, were littered with bananas. Plants came from overseas too, and we had plants that could be easily reused. In those days, bananas were shipped by the bunches. You cut the bunch, you clean the bunch, you pack it on the truck, and you go down to St. George's. And Grenada had a lot of bananas. Just about, they say, 6-8 months after the hurricane, lots of bananas. And by a year, 2 years, 3 years, the banana industry was a thriving industry. In fact, they introduced what is called lacquerton bags to cover the bunch while the bunch was still on the tree. And after that, they didn't ship it anymore in bunches. They handed the bananas, washed them, and put them in boxes. So you have special plans to which the bananas were first brought by the farmers. Okay, Samaritan had one such plant where the bananas were handed, washed, and packaged. And then there was one in Poinsfield, I think, somewhere in Poinsfield, natively up there. There was one in Douglaston, Palmist in St. John's. So a number of places across the island had this plant, special banana plant for washing, cleaning, dehanding, cleaning, washing, and boxing. And so Windward banana industry was thriving well. Then you had Geese. Geese was a special company of boats flying from the United Kingdom to the Caribbean. Okay? And every Monday or Tuesday, and sometimes from Monday evening right until Tuesday late, bananas were being loaded on those boats. And then the cocoa started gaining back some strength, and the nutmeg took some time, and it started growing a little bit more and a little bit more.
Okay, Mr. Marshall, just hold it there a bit, because I want to bring in Livingston. I know Livingston did some heavy research on some of a bit of the political aspect around that time. Livingston, talk to us about what you picked up. We're going to come back to Mr. Marshall in a bit.
Well, again, Godfrey, what I picked up is that I think Mr. Marshall's story was very interesting, and it coincided a lot with what I actually my research stated. Coming out of Aruba, Eric Gary and Nungs, well, he came to Grenada from Aruba. He came back to Grenada to get married to Cynthia. On his return, I guess because of his his buoyancy, his level of organization in the oil field in Aruba, he was seen as a threat. So immediately on his return, he was fired. He then went to what they call to the SO News. That is a big newspaper there in Aruba, and stated that he is going to come to Grenada in order to organize to make Grenada a better place. And so on his return, he organized. It was stated in 49, he organized and he started, of course, the union. But immediately after Janet, and Mr. Marshall might be able to correct, because I got several different bits of information, that soon after, although Grenada was a colonial state under the colonial empire, Gary immediately went out and started to help with the resuscitation. Some of the field officers, and some of the names, I got some of the names, let me see if I get it quickly there. Extension officers went out into the field, into the agricultural field, and they said that was almost directly supervised by Gary himself, to work alongside the estates and to work alongside individual farmers. So people like Macrosh, Mahan, Mr. Hugh Noel, Ned and Hannibal, these people are named as extension officers, immediately went. And what they did was the pruning and replanting of the cocoa and the immediately the nutmeg. So they started to use rope to swing and to hold up the nutmeg in order to resuscitate it. Soon after, they started to bring in bone materials. First, it was stated that the materials came from Suriname, but it is stated it might be coming from Guyana. Yes. So the materials, it was stated, came from Suriname or maybe from Belize or Guyana for the houses. One of the very pieces of interesting information I picked up, Godfrey, was that when those materials came, it was distributed, it was people went around and took names, that is government workers went to took names as to who might need houses. But one of the information is that in Carriacou, people in Carriacou refuse Janet houses. So I don't know if you look around, you will realize that there were very few houses at all in Carriacou. But Gary was very much involved in that. And then there was another interesting piece of information. He also, Mr. Marshall said that the estate gave, but my research stated that Gary went along and seized some of the estates, and he distributed part of the land to some of the farmers. And in so doing, there were some persons, some of them were landowners, absentee owners, but in so doing, some estate owners were up in arms against Gary. And there was a special lady named Miss Chataway from Boulogne, and it was a very interesting story. She, in a sense, stated that she called Gary by some funny names. I don't know if I get it anyway. But what she did, she, in a sense, wanted to say that Gary, that black dog, she referred to him as a black dog. And Gary said that black dog would bite you. And on her return, she went to England. On her return to Grenada, he told her she cannot land, and he took all the land in Boulogne Estate as one of those estates. So Gary rose in prominence. His first major shift was in 1955, in 1951 when he had Skyred, and later on in 1955. And based on what Mr. Marshall said, he was knit and tooth and knit with the working people, with the workers in the estate, sympathizing with them, trying to rebuild agriculture, and trying to make Grenada in this kind of, on that path. So it's about 6 months a year after banana came in and replaced, and banana was shipped, the plants from bananas were shipped from overseas. There's a lot of also work for persons in the trade, like masons and carpenters. And one of the thing I find quite interesting with some of the prices that I got, example, somebody that worked, and again, that is Mr. Delaney Williams from conference, work on rebuilding the GBSS because the GBSS was destroyed. He said his fee was $1.44 per day working. So there are a lot more in terms of where all this come from. Some of the costs people used to pay for some things, the work fees. Again, one other thing, very interesting, on the estate, men were working for 50 cents and 60 cents a day. And soon after, Gary brought it and asked for it to be moved to 80 cents per day, and women were given 70 cents. Also, the people that was physically challenged, everyone, there was, to me, was 100% employment. people went into the Plainfield, the pasture area, pick up cow dung, etc. Use this as manure and use this to help rebuild houses. And even those people that were physically challenged, they too were employed soon after Hurricane Janet. So that's just a pieces of information that I picked up by you.
Right. Now I want to come to Scholar and Reece and delve into the meat of the matter. And let me start with Scholar first. I'm going to leave the lady for last, the best for last. Scholar, we've heard since last week, we've listened to some of the different accounts on Hurricane Janet, how it was a little before, the destruction that Janet brought. And now we are hearing about the rebuilding, the changes. Let's go to the meat of the matter. With all that's been said and experienced by people, how do you see that event reshaping our culture in Grenada? And I'm talking about then, and that transition to today.
Yeah, before we go into that, me and Reece was actually in communication, and there are some Facebook viewers who I think we are forgetting. And before we go into that, I want to ask Reece to
yes, indeed,
read some of the comments, because we should not forget them.
Yes, definitely. Before, especially since we're talking about, how it reshaped our culture, we should bring in our viewers. Joan Lockett, she said, I remember that night. It was horrible. The house was shaking. I was outside all night. Then we had Theresa Pear. I was 9 years then. On the day, there was wind and rain. My mother prepared bakes and saltfish, and we were listening to Wibs. Then there was torrential rain and wind. We as kids were excited, not knowing the danger. Then the neighbors called physically to say we should bar up the windows, etc. Lots of wind. That night, we all huddled on the bottom mattress, and my parents and older brother held the mattress over us all because there was water everywhere. She continued to say, before things got really bad, we looked outside and galvanized was flying in the air like rockets. Coconut trees were like nothing in the wind. And Ernesto also spoke about coconuts becoming like slingshots during Janet. As we said in those days, rain for so and lightning, that was an experience. She also said, but the good thing that came out of this was people were very kind. They traveled far and wide to make sure people were alive and had food to eat and water. However, the water from the tap was muddy. We had to boil it for months after Janet. She said neighbors were like family, where we shared so much food, provision, baking, etc., and that we should bring back those good old days. So yes, that is basically some relevant contributions from our Facebook viewers. Other people are commenting a lot of things to do with Scholar. Ernesto and Scholar have this thing going on.
Tell me what he's saying.
Ernesto asking if you remember going to buy by Georgie bread in the bakery and walking in front of the two ladies who were interviewed, their house to McDonald College. He said Cousin Anne is a lady who lived in Aileron most of her adult life. And he also asked, do you know about the White Cliff of Dover?
No, also, interestingly, last week, Mr. Marshall told us about the tongue crier. Someone who went around and he also mentioned that person was a certain Mr. Dabo. Now, I'm sure everybody in Grenada has heard the name Pele Dabo before. Yeah. And it so happened that tongue crier was the grandfather of Pele Dabo.
So we know where Pele take
yes.
We know where Pele get that from.
That's right. Definitely.
Pele knows that Pele inherited that's Pele's blood.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So scores. Let's get some.
Right. So let's get back to
have a look at here
to the whole hurricane and the shaping of the culture and so on. And I think what we found here is that what Mr. Marshall and even Livingston was discussing. Basically, is this, right? The whole shaping of the culture, because remember, Grenada heavily dependent on agriculture, right? And how we were able to resuscitate the agricultural sector. And Mr. Marshall spoke of our moving into banana export, and this was a major part of a cultural kind of orientation. I grew up as a little boy because my mother worked in the boxing plants at the time. I mean, in those days we call them the depot.
That's right.
Right. So my mother worked in the depot. Most of the time you had Monday and Tuesday were depot days. And when you come out from school, you go down to the depot because my mother worked there. You get the reject banana and them, the men who the reject banana, your full bag, and then you get around with that truck to come up the road. All right. So that was an important really way that young fellas, and I know that there was a depot in Tivoli.
In Pointfield,
region there,
by the river.
Pointfield area. So I guess it was basically the same kind of thing that all you went through. You went. The depot was a lime in those days. Right?
That's a Livingston strong son. You see how much muscles Livingston have?
well, let me tell you something. When Livingston, you and Livingston and them fellas and them used to go in town and beat fellas in things. When tongue children can't beat all you, they used to say the old figure.
That's right.
The old figure making all you strong, so right? I mean, even up to today, when schools from the country go down to St. George's, and tongue children still say these things, right? But a lot of the Janet houses came in. Right, and I heard Livingston said that in Carriacou they didn't accept any Janet houses. I don't know if that is so. And if you can find any remains of any Janet house in Carriacou, but the Janet houses, right? So and Livingston speaking.
Yeah, I said I was told they built two and they refused. They both had to come back with most the lumbers.
Those two houses. But you could have seen that there was an attempt, right, to build stronger houses because we heard a story, Godfrey, that from and I keep forgetting what is her name.
Miss Alquin.
Grandma.
Yeah, grandma.
She said that they lived in a doss house, and the kitchen was a kind of bamboo kind of house.
Yeah.
Kitchen was stronger than the house. And so they were moving during the hurricane, moving from the house to the kitchen, which is unusual, right? So there was, and I guess it's because of circumstances, and because, as Mr. Marshall said, most people were poor, and so on. That those were the houses that they could have afforded during those days. But you could have seen that after the hurricane, there was that attempt, because when we spoke to the two ladies, they didn't share out bamboo and so on to build house, lumber, right?
And galvanized.
There was a move from that to lumber, and then the Janet houses came in stronger. So the building, maybe there wasn't a building code at that time, but there was an attempt to build stronger structures because of Hurricane Janet and what it did to the housing stock, which basically is the same thing that happened after Ivan. The whole, we now have building code and we call it by nice name and so on. And the building codes and so on started to change because people realized that the fragility of the houses that we had now. So all of these things shaped the culture. I do not know much because I've not heard in any stories of things being changed as we saw in Ivan with funerals and banking and all of these things, because Ivan would have done a serious shake-up culturally to those kind of events. I've not thought of those things or social enterprises and so on, and maybe Mr. Marshall maybe can help because he was around at that time.
But Godfrey,
if I should say, as a matter of fact, there were two phases in house replacement after Janet. The first one, are you there? You hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you well.
Yes. Was the granting of materials to repair houses. Under the Gary government, there were lots of materials that came from overseas to help people to repair their houses. In fact, I know a number of well-known Ghanaians who may not even have had a house. They got so much materials, they were able to build big boat houses. Okay? The Janet houses were pre-cut. They were properly cut to size and to fit and package. So when you get the package, it's a whole house you have. All you have to do is get the carpenter and fit it. That was made mainly of purple heart or green heart. And I learned, I don't know, I didn't research that, it had come from Guyana. Okay? So lots of people who lost their houses, the houses were replaced, no matter the size, by one size, pre-cut houses.
Yes, indeed.
But building materials were given out freely. And as I said that day, history has a way of repeating itself. Perhaps I should never say that tonight. But Janet was 1955. And you had this kind of nepotism and this kind of party support people getting the best of it. In 2005, I happened to be in a certain place in Grenada. I was called to control a certain department which had to do with the repair and replacement of houses after Ivan. So I had two secretaries. And for every constituency, there was one data gathering individual, except constituency number 15, St. Max. I didn't get one. The people went out there and they brought in the information. I took the information and I went into the field to investigate. And Godfrey, there was one woman, Metrina Polido of St. Mark's, whose house was on the ground. I received a document, but it wasn't signed. But the name of an important politician was at the top. Roof replaced. So one Sunday evening, I took my car and I went up to Samaritan. I said, where is Metrina Polido staying? They showed me an old house on the ground, and she living at her daughter. I said, where is the roof they put for you? She said, no, Mr. Marshall, they don't give me nothing. I said, look at her, have your name here. Roof replaced. I went to Maran by a half-crazy guy known as Kyron Kalika. House replaced. I went and looked for Kyron because Kyron is a distant cousin of mine. I said, Kyron? He said, yes, cousin Franklyn. I said, how are you today? At day, Kyron sit down in an old picot house with about 6 pieces of board, the original board, stuck onto the siding. 3 pieces of board forming the flooring, and about 6 pieces of balance in the air, and skipping rope all around. I said, where the house you get? hey, which house doesn't family don't give me nothing? And I investigated from reports coming to me. Suddenly, the policy-making group called a quick meeting, closed down that department. And I was told to call in the people from the field. I said I didn't give them work. Call them in for yourself and pay them right now. So everybody was paid. And I got my $3,500 when the month was only about 6 days old. And I left. So what happened in Janet with the distribution
You
of materials happened in Ivan.
Scholar, we actually got that story from someone as well. But I want to go to Reece now. So Reece, your take on the shaping of things from all the accounts you've gotten.
Yes, listening to Mr. Marshall speak, and even Livingston, there's a number of things that I've gathered, and I have to agree with Scholar when he speak about like the new export crop that we had, in the form of banana, and how we were very strategic. Mr. Marshall spoke about that in terms of how we process for export now with the boxing plant and the handing and that sort of thing. But he also spoke about the housing. So we rebuild stronger and better. But I want to speak about employment. Mr. Marshall spoke about everybody being employed, even the disabled. So I hope I'm quoting him correct here. So I saw that out of this devastation, we had a rise in employment because there were needs. But I have to go to the community spiritedness. You found that people were kinder, people shared, and that is something that we saw during Ivan. So you find that in times of devastation, or tragedies, people forget what they had a problem with each other for, and they come together, and they help. We saw that even in terms of the building back, the barrications for the rivers and stuff like that, because busting of banks would have happened. You find that you had river defenses being built, to guard against these things. But one thing that really standing out to me is the political atmosphere. Guys, I did not even know that St. Mark's was the 15th constituency. News for me. See, I'm learning. But it seemed like the handout culture was there since time. Because Mr. Marshall speaks of party supporters benefiting. People who really needed, they did not benefit. That in itself is really sad. And that is how our culture has been shaped. I don't even, when it comes to today, it still exists where, we sort of have a handout mentality, especially if we support who's in power and that kind of thing. And it's just really revealing to me to hear him speak of people being, having experienced that kind of things during the time of Ivan, and to know that it still exists today. We need to reshape that part.
Very interesting was something I need to point out to. USAID, French Red Cross, British Red Cross, and other overseas agencies, I was able to get accurate data from them. But in the constituency offices, it was real whole mess. You understand?
Yeah.
This is something to note. But there was a little something that happened, After it was almost over, I noticed something. People remained friendly, but they put their eyes on the horizon. Before Janet, people might have gone to Panama to work in the canal. They might have gone to Aruba and Curacao to work in the oil refineries, and they came back with a little something. But I noted A few years after Janet, people seem to be heading in bulk to the United Kingdom. Okay, the Ascania, the Lucania, the Discania, until one bound down in St. George's. And when you go on the wharf in the evening and the late night, to see how people take the live boat to go and meet the big boat out there, and the tears, the crying, because they never know they will ever see one another again. I could remember my mother bawling for my bigger sister Roslyn. Oh God, Roslyn, what will I do without you? And Roslyn cried and she went into the boat. And I stood up there and I was shaking. And Roslyn went. And Mommy couldn't sleep for days. Until about a month afterwards, she got a letter. And she read it about 10 times. And she got 10 pounds in it. And they were communicating. However, Roslyn never saw Mommy again. Mommy died. And Roslyn is still in England. In those days, it may take 2, 3, 4 weeks for a letter to reach its destination. You don't jump on a plane and just go. It takes time and planning. And most people from the estates and other young people too, they were looking to go mainly to the United Kingdom. Some went to the United States, and then some went to Canada. Though Canada was newly open, especially in Expo 69. I remember Canada had a booth in True Blue, inviting immigrants to Canada, stating that the population in Canada was only 20 million people, and they were inviting people. That's why lots of people were able to go to Canada without any visa.
Right. So we do have some people trying to reach us on the telephone, and we are going to go to the telephone in a bit. But as you mentioned, Mr. Marshall, there was this migration to England. Speaking to my uncle who left Grenada, as a matter of fact, in 1960. 5 years after Janet, he did say to me that there was this opening, and people were going to England. In fact, he said to me, it took him 15 days to get not to England, to Italy. And then he had to take, I think it was a train from Italy to France. And then from France to England. And, it took a long time. So because of that opening, people were trying to get there and, better themselves. So, yes, in fact, there was this opening. So let's go to our telephone line and, hear from some of our listeners and viewers. OUI CULTURE, good evening.
Yeah, good night, gentlemen.
Good evening, please. Make it quickly, sir.
Yeah, well, I want two items quick on thing. Now, the banana in the days used to go to England, used to go beer banana, used to go. Banana by the bunches first used to go in England. Sing banana just like that. After they put the banana in plastic bag afterwards, and the last thing is the ship banana was in boxes. Now, there are a lot of things otherwise in the case. I mean, even the land was given to all people in the time gone by. That land was given by Gary to one people in between late 60s and early 70s. Gave it to land and give the estate and give people to all land by landless at the time. But there are things, I mean, all I mentioned in the past one there was is very good in any case. People know the history of it in any case, But there are other things, a lot of things happen. You get more and more, and you make a book with that or make a program with that and have it on the air, so people know about the history of it,
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Thanks a lot indeed. Our telephone number is 435-2041. You can give us a call. If you have a contribution you would like to make or add to the discussion, we're happy to accommodate you right now. So the number again, 435-2041. OUI CULTURE, good evening.
Godfrey, good evening.
Yes, go ahead, please, quickly.
Very important. My uncle started working on the DIO in January of 1955. And that was the first boat to reach Grenada after the Hurricane Janet. And I remember he walking from Grenville to Butts Grove, and he brought in a box with sheep tongue. And everybody was afraid to eat the sheep tongue. But I say, if you ain't kill me, I eat it, and I ate it. But Godfrey, every bridge, apart from the one by the Butts Grove police station, every bridge was damaged from Castine, La Fosse, Balthazar, Canblaye, St. Cloud, every bridge, even Paradise Bridge, you notice it was narrowed. And that happened after Hurricane Janet because of the volume of water and the rage with which the water went down. So Janet changed things. And Mr. Marshall, the Janet houses, the wood that was used is called cabocali, and that is the wood that smells the worst kind of smell in the world, cabocali. I wouldn't have to say the word on the TV, but that wood doesn't smell good, and it went on for months. Unless you remember, the Janet houses didn't smell good, especially after rain fell. So Janet taught us a whole new range of things. And the bananas came in after that, and my uncle went to England in 1959, and as Mr. Marshall said, he's here there 3 months before they reached England. And it was a whole different journey. So Janet changed the whole landscape of Grenada. But one thing I must say is that immediately after Janet, the government got into action and things started to happen in the agricultural field. Banana plants were produced, people tied up banana, people went out and walked and cleared the roads, and there were a lot of landslides. If you go to Maribo from Bylands, there's a tombstone on the left on the way to, before you reach Bamboo Gap. And the house there was covered in a landslide, and 9 people died in that house because of the landslide. A lot of people, more people died in Janet than in Ivan. I wouldn't say more because there's a lot I have to say. So good night, gentlemen.
Thank you very much indeed, caller. Thanks a lot indeed. 435-2041, that's the number you can call to share with us your contribution. We Culture, good evening.
Yes, Mr. Godfrey, good afternoon.
Yes, good evening. Go ahead quickly, please.
Mr. Godfrey, you know those guys, and I'm what they speak, and most of the things that they say is true about Hurricane Janet. But they forget St. Patrick, Maris Junction, a whole family washed out on that bridge there, the Rayburn family. So it had plenty of things about that Hurricane Janet we have to talk about. I would like to speak to you after the show or some other time. On that same number?
Yes, caller, no problem.
All right then. Thanks very much.
Have a good night.
Right.
Yeah. Well, we did mention the Rayburn family last week. We maybe the caller missed the program, but we did mention. Let's go back to a telephone. We Culture, good evening. Hello.
Hello.
Yes, good evening. Go ahead quickly, please.
Good afternoon to you. Talking about going to England.
Okay, caller, you need to turn the volume of your radio or your television down.
Okay, it's off completely. Yes, Godfrey. I heard people mention about going to England, taking 3 months. It depends on the boat you went up in, because I went to England in 1962, 9th of March, and it only took 11 days with the SS Sorrento. From Grenada, we went to Barbados, from Barbados, Tenerife, from Tenerife, we went to France. Took a train from France all night and all day till we went next place. Then we took a ferry to England and took a train from England to Victoria Station. It didn't take much long time, but as I say, I spent about 28 years in England, and I'm back in Grenada for good.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much indeed. Okay. Yes. Well, he's right. I guess depending on, because as time went on, I guess things improved. And so nowadays, if you have to go to England, it take you a couple hours. Yeah. Let's take our final call. We Culture, good evening. Hello.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead please, quickly.
Hello?
Okay, you need to turn the volume of your radio or TV down, and you need to listen to us on your telephone. Are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes, I just Reece, first of all, I would like to congratulate you on your son's success in the exam. I think Reece will know who is speaking. I just want to add something to Hurricane Janet. At the time of the hurricane, I was living in St. George's, about just 15 years attending the St. Joseph's Convent. And I remember on that day, when we heard about hurricane coming and school closed early. But we, the fifth formers, we were doing our exams, SC. We decided to leave school. We left the convent and we walked down Church Street up by the fort to take a look around and see what was happening. Then we went home. The night with the rain, we were living on Market Hill at the time. And my mommy used to have boarders. And I remember all of us in the room with her. We had a big bed, and how many people slept on that bed lying sideways across. The morning when we got up and looked up Market Hill, all the houses right at the top, the roofs were off, the galvanized was in the road. And then the bigger ones decided with us young ones, we would walk down. And lo and behold, when we reached the alley there where we have the telephone company now, where Lime used to be, this pier that was on the other side where the pier is, it was a wooden pier then. And all of that pier was over because that place was empty like a market. We used to sell things there. An empty lot of land. And the wood from the pier was there along with a lot of the goods that would have been in it and a lot of dead rats. And as children, we remembered looking at that. And that was one of the things that we remembered. Now, the boys and so who were boarding with us from the schools, now they were anxious to get home. But there was no transport. They left walking. It took them about 2 days to get up to Satet and these different places. And they would tell us the story about having to cut up the trees and leave the road. There was no road. Go all up, like in the mountains, come back down till they could find a road. And when they came back, their feet were all swollen from that trek up and down. And these are some of the memories of Janet. And again, when you spoke about the Rayburn family, I remember that whole family, the story of them being lost. Some people went to shelter in the shop there, and they went, everybody went. So there are lots of things, that people could chronicle and so about this. And then in 1951, you go back to the Sky Red again, living in town, and we lived through all of that as children. Lots of stories. So I would speak to Reece one of these days and give us some information.
That would be very nice. We look forward to hearing that. Thank you very much, caller. Thank you very much. Yes, indeed. Okay, folks. Well, time has gone by really quickly. We don't have any more time for any more calls. So, team, let's just briefly summarize this whole thing. And now I'm going to start with Reece.
Oh, well, I'd just like to go back to the Facebook page and get some of the comments. Onesto said that after Janet, I was told there was a man who used to climb the poles and light a lantern because the place was dark and people couldn't see at night. Teresa Pierce said, I know they made flambeau so they could see in the night. And Ernesto again is saying, Godfrey, I'm suggesting that you should do a part 3 involving the people of the Sister Isles to hear their experiences of Janet. And, I think that's a very good idea as well. And in terms of, summarizing this, there's quite a lot that we've learned tonight, especially to do with the reshaping of our culture, what the aftermath of Hurricane Janet. And, we can link a lot of things of today and know where it stemmed from and what would have been the situation at the time that caused us to be where we are today. So this is really important. This is culture. This is Grenada's culture. And, I'm hoping that we can get to the part where we can actually look at Janet versus Ivan and, how is it that we dealt with things during Ivan compared to what we would have heard about Hurricane Janet. So, that's it for me. Looking forward to maybe we can speak some more about this. And it was a pleasure hearing my past principal, Ms. Linda E. Mason Francis. Very heartwarming. Yes, indeed.
Mr. Marshall, in closing?
Okay, what I can say is this, that we have come a long way. And there is something about poverty that seems to bind people together. The old Grenadian society seemed to me to be very understanding, very simple, and they indulged in things that they felt was good, right, and proper. The young lady spoke about it, the street lights. I would have spoken about it before. You know, the man would go and put up this light. They were basically the Coleman type of lamp and the Sealy type of lamp. When I worked in the Catholic Church in 1958, 59, I used to be responsible for putting up the light in the church, okay, for Vespers and Stations of the Cross and novenas and so on, okay? But what is very interesting, the simplicity of the past brought a kind of satisfaction and a kind of happiness among the people that they didn't look forward to great things. They were content with the lot. But as time moves on and modernity steps in, there seems to be a greater degree of dissatisfaction and greed and other vices permeating our society, and I hope we can be watchful about those things. Thank you.
Very, very instructive how the culture has changed. Livingston?
I think I would want to start from where Mr. Marshall took off as it relates to the changing. For me, Janet was about binding, consolidating, and reinforcing community spirit. I think in more modern time, people has become a lot more selfish as we become more modern. There was a response. The response immediately after Janet was that we need to see the country on a proper footing. I'm not so sure if I saw that after Ivan. The response by the leaders after Janet to develop the agriculture sector, to get people involved in the road cleaning and the reconstruction. I mean, it was, apart from the payment, what I picked up from my informants was that it was really a community effort. In a lot of instances, without money being paid. A lot of people's houses got built without money being paid for and work get done. So that sense of community. And I think springing out of that, Godfrey, and we had some experience after Ivan, so maybe if we have a next time, I would share that. Secondly, I would like to really thank some of my informants. I think it's important to recognize them. Mr. Leiden, Francis, Mr. Clement, Margaret Clement, Mr. Delaney Williams, and Miss Helena Nelson, some of those persons that were my informants that really give me some critical information that I would like to share. Finally, I think since last week, Godfrey, I was trying to remind you, there was a young man on the news one time that he was crippled and he was asking for a wheelchair. For persons listening, if you are in contact with this man, we have identified a wheelchair in case the young man did not receive any. He was born physically challenged and unable to walk. And in case you are listening, you can get in contact with Godfrey on GBN, you can get in contact with me. And we definitely has a chair located for this young man that we can make available to him through the kind compliments of the Clements family from Conference La Poche.
Right. Scholar, as we wrap.
Godfrey, as we wrap, I just want to say that this program is very important, not just because it's around Janet's birthday, or because we're speaking about the whole culture and how Janet would have shaped the culture, but also because of the uncertain kind of weather patterns that we're seeing recently. Last week, for example, the whole of last week was unbearably hot. I mean, it's the hottest times that I can ever remember in my life. Outside hot, inside hot, below tree hot, by sea hot, night hot, day hot, 12 o'clock hot. It was just hot. And then we see what happened this week. A lot of rain and what have you. And because of this, sometimes it's important to go back, really, and to look at those things, because somehow or the other, you know, the memories sometimes they fade very quickly. And I think that was true with Janet and Ivan. It was said that Janet, before Janet, people weren't taking it seriously. Even when they heard that there was a hurricane, because they had heard that before. And then when Janet came, immediately after that, I guess if people hear a little rain, they get afraid. But as time went by, and we had near misses, and people started to say, well, God is a Grenadian, and we're not in the hurricane belt, and so on, people became complacent. And then Ivan came, Emily came, and those of us who witnessed that, we would not become complacent in a hurry. But there are children now who are coming up who are almost into the 20s, really, who would soon become complacent because they never heard that. And it's important to chronicle and to document those things so they can go back, really, and listen to these stories and to hear the amount of trouble people see during Janet. And as Reece said, it's important maybe that we get this Ivan-Janet comparison going also. Finally, I want to say that I am very happy that I was part of this whole project, and I heard those stories and so on firsthand from these people, and I'm surprised really that there are so many people out there who carry these stories, carry these memories with them even to this day. And that nobody has seen it fit really to do a proper documentary of the events of Janet and so on. Maybe if that was done, we would have had more respect in 2002, 2003, before Ivan, because I know for a fact that even me, I never experienced anything. And really and truly, I didn't know what the experience was like. I heard a lot of people say they want to experience something, right? Because there was no graphic account really of those things. And I'm surprised that it was not done. And this is something that I'm tasking We Culture with. We need to take all of those testimonials, put them together, and do a proper documentary about our also, so that it can stay there in the annals and people can go back to it. I know that there are a lot as it relates to Ivan, but there's none really on Janet. So I'm tasking We Culture, Reece, Reece, I know he's good at narration and so on. With that, I ain't good at this kind of thing. So who good at that would be able to do that and collect these things and put them together.
Yes, indeed. We that is the intention. When we started this program, that was the plan, to chronicle a lot of the events that has affected our culture over the years and have them available for people to see. As a matter of fact, one of our our programming head here, Mr. Mike Alexis, he's promised to take all of these interviews that we've done and upload them on a YouTube channel so people can refer to them, go back to them. But we definitely will do a proper documentary, nicely chronicled with proper narration and everything like that, so people can sit. Because I think Scholar mentioned it last week, I went online as well to try to find some information about Janet, and the only thing I got was basically something on Janet in Barbados. There was practically nothing about Grenada, and now that we're hearing some of the stories, I mean, it is amazing of the damage that was done, and we still have more interviews. The one we did with Miss Alquid in Tivoli, I mean, she gave a very vivid account of the things that happened. 65 years later, she recalls the name of a lot of people. In fact, one of the things she said that really got me was sometime during the night, while her mother was with them inside and her father was trying to get the children out to move them to another area, they heard this loud crash, and when they checked, it was a coconut that hit her father in his back and tossed him against the house. Then later on, he got caught in his neck by some was it breadfruit branches or something like that. So as Scholar said, people see a lot of trouble, and this generation needs to know what happened. You know, it's all part of our history, and it has helped to shape and fashion our culture. So it's important that we continue to do that. I will take that gentleman's advice. We have contact with someone in Carriacou. So I will contact the gentleman and try and get an exclusive interview with him, or have him on the program if he's available, to tell us about the Carriacou experience during Janet, you know, and how it has changed the course of things in Carriacou. So we will continue with the programs, we will continue with the interviews, we will continue to reach out to people to get information so that people can understand we culture. Guys, thank you so very much. It was a pleasure again, and I look forward to being with you all next Friday at 8. Thank you very much, and have a good night.
Well,
that's our program this week, folks. We thank all our thank the team, actually, and of course, special thanks to Mr. Marshall for being back with us, you know, sharing with us some additional information on Janet. So until next Friday, do have a good night and all the best.
They've taken over not just Karabakh itself, but 7 surrounding regions of Azerbaijan.
When you were seeing these things, Joseph, you were a young journalist at the time,
I
right?
was a young journalist of the time. I've seen my colleagues killed in Karabakh, and I myself traveled to Stepanakert, which is called Khankendi now in Azerbaijan, as a journalist, and I spent time in the building of the National Assembly reading out news on local radio.
So after 3 decades... In Russian, of course, yeah. And so after 3 decades, I mean, what is it like then for you as an Azeri, as somebody who saw this, who had friends, and what is it like to when you hear the news report like that came out last Sunday that